The real test of your plantation will be in the quality of the timber that you can send to the sawmill when your trees are mature. And if you want good quality trees, then you must start here at the nursery by selecting the best possible plants. This programme explores how your young plants are produced in the nursery and how you can give them the best start when planting. Just as pedigree is critical for the breeder, the provenance or origin of the seed is critical for the forester. The nursery manager selects seed of accepted origins for each tree species as specified by the Forest Service. Home collected seed from registered seed stands is recommended.
Where possible, we use Irish collected seeds, and where this is coming from Irish registered stands. Where this is not possible, we import seed from recognised sources that are suitable for growing in Irish climatic conditions. Smaller seeds, the like of Sitka spruce, the likes of birch and alder, these are sown broadcast on beds for a period of time, and at the end of maybe the first year or a year and a half into the growing process, they're transplanted into transplant lines and grown on for a further year or so to allow them to develop into good-sized transplants.
The lining out machine places each seedling in position along the transplant line and firms the soil around the roots. In the transplant lines, the plants have more space to grow and to develop good fibrous root systems. This is vital for successful establishment in the forest. Instead of being transplanted, seedlings of deep rooting species, such as oak and other broadleaves, are precision sown in beds so that they can be undercut after 1 year. This means cutting the roots by drawing a sharpened blade through the bed at the appropriate depth. Undercutting can also be used in transplant lines for seedlings of conifer species, such as pines.
The idea of undercutting is that it's to sever the main taproot of the seedling and to develop a more fibrous root system. You can see here there's the blade here has been dragged under the surface of the seedbed and it has severed the main taproot, and it stimulates fresh root growth of these fibrous roots, the likes of this white root here or these ones up here. And this is beneficial when the plants are transplanted into the forestry plantation situation.
Plants are categorised according to their time spent growing in the seedbed and transplant lines. A 1+1 transplant is 2 years of age. It has spent 1 season in the seedbed and 1 in the transplant line. A plant classed as a 1U1 is also 2 years old, but after 1 season it was undercut in the seedbed and then grown on in the seedbed for a 2nd season. A 2+1 transplant is 3 years of age. It has spent up to 2 seasons in the seedbed and at least 1 season in the transplant line. Lifting is the process of removing plants from the seedbeds or lines prior to their preparation for planting. Timing of lifting is very important. The plants must be sufficiently hardened off to overcome the stress of being transferred from one environment to another. Lifting of young plants usually commences in November. It's a mechanised operation and should be carried out during favourable weather conditions. Plants produced in this way are called bare root plants and are widely used in forestry. An alternative system produces containerised plants. These are grown in a plug of soil within tubes or pots. This usually results in minimum root disturbance when planting and allows you to plant later in the season if necessary. However, containerised plants are generally more expensive to produce than bare rootstock, so they are less widely used. Following lifting, these bare root plants have to be moved indoors as quickly as possible to prevent them drying out. Culling and grading is necessary to provide the customer with plants that meet the uniformity and quality standards required by the Forest Service. Plant culling and grading takes place indoors in most forest nurseries.
Well, what we have here is the grading shed where the trees are brought in from the field in crates, and we have individual graders sorting the trees into different sizes and rejecting trees that are poor quality or too small.
Inferior plants are first culled out. Viable plants are then graded according to quality parameters and their suitability for different sites.
Basically, what we're looking for in the likes of this 2-year oak undercut is, first of all, a good root system with plenty of fibrous roots, and then we're also looking for a good strong root collar diameter, and then a size either 50 centimetres or over, and that has got good straight stem and a viable terminal bud on top.
Plant quality is just as important for conifers as for broadleaves.
What we're not looking for are trees that are a very poor root collar diameter or very small in size, or also trees that have a badly shaped stem or root here, like this one here, or trees that have been damaged by machinery in the nursery or have forked while growing in the nursery.
Following grading, plants are normally placed in co-extruded polythene bags. These bags are white on the outside to reflect sunlight. Co-extruded bags prevent the drying out of plants, make handling and distribution more efficient, and may help to improve early growth of young trees in the forest. Before you reach the stage where you've made the decision to plant and plants are being delivered to your site, visit your local Teagasc advisor who will help you make informed decisions about all aspects of establishing your forest, including site suitability, ground preparation and species selection.
Okay, Adrian, the site starts here, begins in this corner, goes right down to the bottom ditch. You can only see about half the bottom headland, and back up along this fence here.
Okay, so we're talking about exposure, moderate exposure at the top. We'll probably look at alder down there.
Okay.
The selection of the most suitable tree species for a given site is probably the most critical decision to be made in a forestry enterprise. Initially, every new application for pre-planting approval must include a proposed species map, certified by an approved forester.
Okay, Philip, we'll just have a look up at the top of the site.
Okay.
But I think at this stage, at the bottom there, where it's not very exposed, we'll probably go with Douglas fir.
Right,
It's good quality timber, maybe to be a good choice to grow down there.
Right. It is very, very sheltered down there.
Well, if it's sheltered...
The choice of which species will suit your site will depend on the type of soil and existing vegetation, how well your site is drained, and how high and exposed it is. These factors will determine future growth rates. You must also take into account all landscape and environmental considerations, the risk of frost or the presence of deer in your area, and expectations from future markets.
Will there be much difference between the top of the field and the bottom, do you think, as regards soil?
No, I shouldn't think so. It's quite fertile all over, I'd say. We'll do a few tests for that.
However, the Forest Service must be satisfied with all proposed species before planting approval can be issued.
I've got a species choice down here for Douglas fir, so yeah, no problem at all. I'll go along with that.
Good, good.
A few other things to look at on site. 10% broadleaf content. The soil's good enough to take 10% broadleaf content. We put 10% in.
Sitka spruce will grow on a range of soils, varying from the more fertile peats to wet, rushy fields. In order to create diversity, the Forest Service require that a second species, such as larch or alder, is mixed with Sitka spruce. Norway spruce is generally a better choice than Sitka spruce on suitable sites that are prone to frost. And broadleaf trees, such as ash, sycamore, oak and beech, need free-draining mineral soils with low elevation in sheltered locations. A minimum of 10% broadleaves must be planted on all new developments where the site permits. No matter what species you are planting, it's important that you select good quality plants from approved nurseries, and if possible that you inspect the plants yourself.
What species are you going to use? I'll be using Sitka spruce and Jap larch.
Yes, as a 20% mix.
Yeah, you normal 20% mix, yeah, for the diverse.
Yes. What type of ground are you planting?
Be high ground.
High ground, so it's reasonably exposed. Right, Graham, this is the Sitka spruce.
Yeah. Okay, when were these lifted?
These would have been lifted about 4 days ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what age would they be?
These would be a 2+1, which would be a 3-year-old plant. As you can see, they have a nice straight leader, they have a good root system, strong root collar, so this should be ideal for your situation.
Winter is a busy time here in the nursery, as all bare-rooted plants must be planted while they are dormant or before the buds begin to swell in spring. The preferred time for planting of broadleaf species and larches is between November and January. Douglas fir is best planted in November or April. Sitka spruce and other conifers are best planted as early as possible in spring. Once bagged, the plants are either transported to the planting site or otherwise can be placed in cold storage. This cold storage process keeps plants dormant until later in the season. Plants from cold storage can be useful if you have to plant late in the season. However, late planting can carry a higher risk of plant failure depending on weather and soil conditions at the time. Cold storage trees will also have a shorter first growing season. Coordination and timing of plant deliveries from nursery to planting site is essential to ensure that the health and quality of the plants is maintained. Use the just-in-time principle where possible.
I have planters due in the 11th of February, so I was looking for about 8,000 trees a couple of days before that.
Plants must be properly handled during transportation from the nursery to the planting site. The more rough handling of trees, the higher the risk of failures, particularly for some species. Once the bags arrive on site, you should have the contractor or consultant check the health and quality of the trees. Check that the bags contain the correct number, grade and species as specified on the label, and that all the plants are in good health. The nursery must supply a provenance declaration form showing the origin of the trees. You should not leave plants in bags for more than 2 to 3 weeks on the site, and no more than 2 weeks for plants lifted early or late in the season. Plants from cold storage should be planted within a week of delivery. If you're not planting the bagged plants immediately, you must store them in a cool, shaded area. You should stack the bags individually on their side and under cover from direct sunlight. This allows circulation of air and prevents water entering the bags. These plants have overheated either because they were placed in bags while wet or left too long before planting. On larger plantations, plants may be distributed throughout the site by tractor or quad to facilitate planting. Planting of trees is one of the most important operations in the establishment of a forest. The planting method used will be determined by the species planted, site conditions and cultivation method. Slit planting is a commonly used technique in areas where the soil has already been loosened, such as on mechanically mounded or ploughed sites. It involves the opening of a slit of sufficient size and depth to ensure an even spread of roots. The plant is inserted as far as the root collar and held upright while being firmed in with the foot. It's important that roots should only be inserted by hand and never forced into the soil with a spade. Angle notch planting is carried out on ripped sites as it gives the tree a better start where the soil has not been loosened. Angle notch planting involves cutting an L-shaped notch in the ground 7 to 8 inches from the rip channel. It's important that the notch is cut vertically and is deep and wide enough to ensure a good even spread of roots. The roots of the tree are placed in the angle to the depth of the root collar and firmed in. An alternative is T-notch planting, which also gives excellent root spread when properly and carefully carried out. Pit planting is carried out where cultivation is not possible, such as on steep slopes which are already sufficiently drained or where broadleaves are being planted near aquatic zones. It involves digging a hole for the plant of sufficient size and depth for a good root spread. This is the most time-consuming and expensive planting method. On sites that are already sufficiently drained, mechanical planting can take place. Planting and all other aspects of forestry are covered in the courses and open days run by Teagasc and the Forest Service. For all planting methods, the trees should be removed from the bags only when ready for planting to prevent drying of roots. And following any planting operation, the Forest Service specify that all empty bags and chemical containers must be collected and removed from the site for disposal in an environmentally responsible manner. Plantations will not be granted in the event of littering. Penalties are also in place in the event of dumping on site. A farm forest can yield great rewards, both commercially and in the satisfaction of watching saplings grow into mature trees. If you've decided to plant trees, learn as much as you can about forestry early on. Make sure to choose the most suitable species for your site, select quality plants from the nursery, and make sure that they are planted with care. You can then watch your trees grow in the knowledge that you've given them the best start possible.